let me sketch the issues. The most vivid at the moment is the war in Ukraine. And the outcome of that war, in both the military and political sense, will affect relations between groupings of countries, which I will mention in a minute. On the outcome of any war has a peace settlement, but the nature of that peace settlement will determine whether the combatants remain permanent adversaries or whether it's possible to fit them into an international framework. About 8 years ago, when the idea of membership of Ukraine in NATO came up, I wrote an article in which I said that the ideal outcome would be if Ukraine could be constituted as a neutral kind of state, as a bridge between Russia and Europe, rather than as the front line of groupings within Europe. I think that opportunity does not now exist in the same manner, but it could still be conceived as an ultimate objective. In my view, a movement towards negotiations and negotiations on peace need to begin the next 2 months or so. That the outcome of the war should be outlined by them before it creates upheavals and tensions that could be even harder to overcome. And particularly between the eventual relationship of Russia towards Europe and of Ukraine towards Europe. Ideally, the dividing line should return to the status quo ante. I believe pursuing the war beyond that point would turn it into a war not about the freedom of Ukraine, which has been undertaken with great cohesion by NATO, but into a war against Russia itself. And so this seems to me to be the dividing line, that it is just and possible to define, and it will be difficult. Any modification of that occurs during the negotiations, which of course have not yet been established, but which should begin to be the concern of the major participants as the war develops. And I have given outline of a possible military outcome But one has to keep in mind that any modification of that will complicate the negotiations in which Ukraine has a right to be a significant participant, but in which one hopes that they match the heroism that they have shown in the war with wisdom for the balance that has in Europe and in the world afterwards. The relationship that will develop as a result of this war, not between Ukraine, which will be probably the strongest conventional power on the continent, and the rest of Europe will be developed over a period of time. But one has to look at the relationship of Europe to Russia over a longer period, and in a manner that is separated to some extent from the existing leadership, whose status, however, will be affected internally over a period of time by its performance in this period. But looked at from a long-term point of view, Russia has been for 400 years an essential part of Europe, and European policy over that period of time has been affected fundamentally by its European assessment of the role of Russia, sometimes in a disturbing way, but on a number of occasions as the guarantor or the instrument by which the European balance could be re-established. We, in current policy, should keep in mind that a restoration of this goal is Europe, so that Russia is not driven into a permanent alliance with China